I told him, I said it. It was approved by HR. We hired under that pay scale, and it was transparent to the county commission. And so I always abided by the county budget regulations voluntarily, because I didn't want to do my own HR. I didn't want to do my own maintenance. I didn't want to do all the things that the county could do. And some of you may know Charlotte Nash, who was the county commission chair for a lot of the years that I was district attorney. To call her a hard-nosed negotiator is a small compliment. And so she and I and the county administrator I would make the budget presentation to them, and we would negotiate how it was going to be, because I understood. And Charlotte told me more than once, you know, you screw around, I'm going to start taking money out of your budget. So I didn't. So it's what we really need to stress, and I think all three of us need to stress, is every single one of the 50 DAs in the state handle their funding differently. But we have broad outlines and broad, I wouldn't call them regulations, but some of us, like me, agreed totally with the idea that we wanted to work within the county budgeting system. Some don't. Some take their money and go home. And there's no, in fact, the legal authority for that is stronger than legal authority for controlling the budget. Right now, we're like every other elected official, that the sheriff, the district attorney, all of those constitutional officers are given an appropriation and have the right to spend it any way they want.
Okay. So what money is distributed or allocated by the prosecuting attorney's council? There's money.
The state funds that are allocated.
We appropriate money directly to
prosecuting attorney's council.
What happens to that money that we get back?
Some of that money goes into the actual PAC budget, the prosecuting attorney's council budget. That budget is then approved by the council, and that involves salaries for employees, it involves training costs, and it involves, they have to do certain housekeeping things too, maintenance, general operating expenses, rent, vehicle maintenance, all the things that any other state agency does. And so that money is allocated by the executive director. It is it's voted on by the council, the budget is. Then there's the DA budget. The DA budget basically pays the salary, it does all the salary and benefits for state paid employees, including district attorneys. So that money is allocated in accordance with law, by the set salaries, and it also is distributed. Benefits are paid for. Retirement funds are put into their accounts.
Okay.
So that's,
I'm not going to spend this whole meeting on budgets, but I wanted to make sure we understood the funding sources and kind of how it goes. And I know you got something you want to say, right? I'm going to tell you all a couple areas I want you to give me some flesh out for me. Go ahead and ask your question.
No, I just want to make, you asked about the state budget, and I asked Pete about that. 99% of the DA program budget, 99% is tied up in salaries. So I just wanted to make sure you knew, when you say where does that money go, 99% of it.
What does the state pay in salary per DA?
I know that I make a little over 130. I think it's 133
from the state of Georgia.
Right. That can vary if you don't have a drug court.
Right.
Because I believe I get 5 or 6 for having a drug court.
I was on the criminal judicial council. I forgot what we were called, but Nathan Deal's thing, and we were trying to incentivize counties to do drug courts, and that was the carrot.
right.
And everybody took the carrot, which
We
is good,
appreciate
public
it.
policy, because now we got drug courts addressing those issues in every circuit, I believe every single circuit. Is that salary, let's call it 133, that is the same in every circuit, correct? The state funded portion.
The state funded portion is the same for every single DA. I do want to provide context. It is the lowest pay in the southeast.
It's good to know.
And I think that's important. I just want this committee to understand that
You're not
all of our,
whining, you're just educating.
I'm doing both. I'm doing both.
You're doing great. Now, on top of that, do counties supplement district attorney salaries?
Some.
Okay.
It depends.
Okay.
So for instance, when I left, I made, at that time, the DA's salary was $128,000. And I made a $48,000 supplement from the county.
Very similar to Superior Court judges.
Correct.
Okay. What do y'all think about the fairness of that? You're the poor boy from the country. Rhea, I don't know what you make.
I mean, I'll speak on,
Y'all working?
yeah, I'll speak on this, Mr. Chairman. You know, here's the thing, and I kind of want to comment on a couple of things that have been said, but that's not true across the state. Counties are not supplementing their district attorneys across the state. I get a very small supplement of just around $15,000 from all four, that's 4 counties combined. So that's my supplement from all 4 counties. I also want to make this point, and I think it's important for the committee and for the people to understand, our people that are voting out there, is that these DA's offices, like Mr. Porter said, run very, very differently. A lot of your metro DA's offices run very much like a large-sized law firm. And I don't mean to sound like a country girl here, but I think it's important that our circuits, like me and Wright and the Vic McNeeses of the world that are out here, we're running like my dad's cattle farm, okay? Things have to be done. He gets up and he's the one that does it. Now, he has people that help him, but he's getting in there and he's doing it. Right now, and even Danny, you were still trying cases. We're still trying cases out there. I mean, I'm trying a case at the end of August. I'm trying a murder case down in Upson County, because when the judges come in and they schedule court all over the place and everybody's in trial, I'm getting in there and trying the cases. So I wanted the committee to understand that it's very different around the rest of the state. And I did want to humanize a little bit of the load that we're asking our ADAs to carry, the ADAs that are getting paid on this scale that frankly is very low. I mean, my ADAs down in Upson County are carrying a caseload of around 600 cases. In Spalding County, they're hovering around 600 as well. And in Fayette, they're way above 500, and that's their caseload, and that's very high.
Per assistant DA? That's per assistant
Yes,
DA?
that's
Okay.
the average. That's the average. Obviously, it's going to fluctuate because we have case assignments according to judges, and then my ADAs are assigned to a team with a judge. But that's the average. That's about where they're hovering, and that's just, it's a lot. But I mean, I've already asked so much of my counties, and so we're doing what we need to do. But I wanted to throw that in there to kind of humanize it a little bit for y'all before we moved on from this topic.
No, that's good, because we hear feedback that some of the metro DAs are making $200,000 or plus per year. And that's when I realized this isn't the same statewide, because that's significantly above what the state pay is. And I don't know if the state pay is triggered on certain percentage. It seemed like it used to be whatever the Superior Court judge's state pay was, it was going to be either 90% of that. But we're looking at changing the pay of Superior Court judges, and I think the legislature needs to know you're also talking about 50 DAs are about to get a raise too. I'm not criticizing that, right? I think we ought to pay y'all more, but
I don't know if that's still in effect, but
I don't know either,
Mr.
but
Scanlakis
you need to
would
know.
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, it was a trickle down. Once you raise the Superior Court, at least in Gwinnett County, once you raise the Superior Court judge's salary, it trickled down.
Right. Did the supplements
True.
as well?
It
The state law wouldn't apply to that?
It
probably.
depends.
Okay, depends on your politics.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, retirement money. I've got the code in front of me, and it basically says district attorneys are who are members of either the district attorney's retirement system or the employee's retirement system of Georgia, will be entitled to receive service and sick leave, et cetera, et cetera. So where do your people go? I mean, district attorneys, I guess, have your own separate retirement system if you want to participate in it?
We are part of
Judicial retirement.
the
Judicial
JRS.
retirement. Okay.
And that is based on years of service.
All right, and that covers both the elected district attorney and your assistant DAs?
No, sir.
Just the elected?
Just elect the elected.
Where's everybody else go to the state?
ERS.
ERS? All right, so what about the county funded positions? Do they get retirement through ERS, or does the county have to fund
The
it?
county will fund that unless, and this is one thing that we've not talked about, and there's a code section for it that explains it. They're what's called spacer employees, state paid, county reimbursed.
All right.
All right, and what's attractive about those employees for a lot of my counties is it takes the liability, like health insurance and benefit package, off the county. So those employees are receiving a state paycheck, state retirement, state health insurance, but the counties then turn around and write the prosecuting attorney's council a check for reimbursement.
So that's monitored through the PAC. That's one of its duties. Okay.
Right.
Now, I also know, and I'm still stuck here on 15, 18, 19 for my lawyers up here that are keeping up. The PAC sets forth all the sort of uniform policies, rules, regulations, et cetera, for employees. And I don't know whether that's voted on by the DAs or adopted, but I want to believe that these policies and procedures for employees of district attorneys' offices are uniform statewide, but I don't know. Are they? Are you required to comply with what the council has put out as what they ought to be?
I know that the prosecuting attorney's council puts out a best practices suggestion.
Okay.
But I want to highlight again how different some of these offices are set up based on the individual needs. The DA's offices, honestly, are kind of like Georgia as a state. You got Atlanta and everybody else. And I say that with all due respect. Everybody's got pros and cons, but I don't know that you could put in place policies and procedures that would apply to my office that would be a great idea for a metro office, because it's just night and day. I've got 8 counties. I've got people riding all over the place, covering court every which way. It's just a really tough thing. For example, I thought about implementing a time clock for all my employees. And then when I realized how difficult that might be and expensive, we chose not to do that. I let one of my attorneys, who's got 30 years worth of experience, work from home one day a week. I've got to monitor that on our tracker system and make sure she's doing what she's supposed to do. But in a small area like I operate in, it's difficult sometimes. I don't mean any offense to Irwinton, Georgia. I love Irwinton, Georgia. I grew up 30 minutes from there. But I don't know how many people in the room right now want to live in Irwinton, Georgia and work there. And so the struggle I have is I've got people that work for me that live in Athens and Macon. If you take Brad Rigby's circuit down in below Houston County, I mean, he's got some places that the Dollar General is the Wally World. I mean, it's it. So when you talk about these procedures that PAC or somebody could try to put in place for the offices, I think you would have a very difficult time crafting policies and procedures for each individual office because we're operating so differently.
Well, but PAC does, the council does put out policy and procedures, and there is a policy and procedure manual, but it deals primarily with fiscal issues. For instance, there was a problem with absenteeism at one of the trainings long ago, but it was a training issue, and there was a problem with people who would sign up for classes that they didn't go to. And try and get CLE credit for it. And the council members, the PAC staff all recognized it. So we passed a rule that said you had to go to 85% of the classes before you could claim reimbursement. That rule was enforced by the staff at PAC. If they can report to the council that there's a violation of that rule, then the council will go to the DA and demand repayment of the reimbursement. That's where the problem comes in terms of the council's authority is, if the DA tells the council to go pound sand, then there's no enforcement of that policy. There's no way to enforce the policy.
Yeah, I'm picking up on that, because subject to the provisions of this chapter, we're in Title 15, the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of the State of Georgia shall, with the advice and consent of a majority of the district attorneys, adopt and amend uniform policies, rules, and regulations which shall apply to all state-paid personnel employed by the district attorneys. And then it lists all the many, many, many things you've got that authority to do. So that reads to me like the state of Georgia has delegated to the Prosecuting Attorney's Council, who can only act with the consent of at least a majority of the 50 district attorneys, the power to do these rules. But they're only applying to the state paid employees, which y'all have all designated are maybe less than 50%. And the rules and regulations I'm worried about are ethical behavior of district attorneys and their assistant district attorneys. I think every citizen in Georgia ought to have some guarantee, some expectation of what that's going to be, what's proper, what's inappropriate, and who's going to set that up, because we're allowing the Prosecutors and Attorneys Council to do it. And all our oversight is at the bottom of this. It said any rule, regulation, or amendment to these shall be presented to the officers of the Judiciary Committee of the House and the Senate. Well, I'm an officer. I'm vice chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and I don't remember anybody from PAC ever showing me rules and regulations or changes for me to be advised of. And I guess we don't have power to approve them or disapprove them. We're just put on notice of them, so that if we disagree, if the inmates are running, the asylum here, then we maybe ought to be stepping in here. And that's part of the role of this committee, is to recommend if we need uniform state laws and procedures, ethical boundaries, guardrails, or whatever, or fair pay or whatnot. I'm processing this in my head, how it works, and that's kind of what I'm getting, is that we have delegated it basically to the district attorneys, who are acting through PAC.
Through the county. I would agree with that, but I think when the statute was passed, it stopped short of building in any enforcement.
True.
And so I think over the years, the council has taken the position that all we can control is the money, which is a similar position that the county commissions are in, is that their enforcement is the fiscal matter. So the rules, which I did leave out the step, the council proposes the rule changes, or the staff at PAC proposes a rule change, and it's submitted now electronically for a vote of the DAs. And then if they don't all approve, it was more common to have.
So what if 26 approve? Are all 50 bound by it, or are these non-binding guidelines?
Well, they're as binding as the enforcement power that the council is given.
Which
so
is very limited.
Yeah, there's really no. You can talk about, you can cut their money off, but for instance, how do you collect money that's owed? Is the council the entity that is supposed to sue the district attorney to get reimbursed on payment of training expenses that were abused? There's no thought to what goes beyond the finding of impropriety.
Yeah, I wanted to add that one of the ways that PAC, when I came into office, there was a large bill that my office owed. And Pete was very, very kind, but but it was understood that if I didn't settle that debt, that all of my spacer employees would be cut off. They weren't going to agree to do that. So we nickel and dimed ourselves to pay that. As the DA of a circuit that is primarily rural, I don't believe I have a whole lot of say at all. And what I mean by that is just like when we sustained those large cuts in our grant funding that funded our victim advocates, I was just told, right, you're going from a little over 350,000 down to 107. And Pete and the PAC staff will tell you that I had a conniption over it. Yeah. All right, I don't have as much influence as one would think as it pertains to HR, budget, money. I just don't. But as to misconduct, as to questionable behavior, and I understand that it is just now getting off the ground, but 151832 subsection H outlines 6 different ways, and willful misconduct in office is one of them. Willful and persistent failure to carry out your duties pursuant to 1518.6. Knowing conduct prejudicial to the administration of justice which brings the office into disrepute. We now have, in my humble opinion, more guardrails than we've ever had. And I think that was the
statutory or through that council?
That 151832.
Okay.
I will tell this entire committee, and I've told numerous people, I don't work for PAC, and PAC provides a lot of resources. If you look at the legislative intent of why PAC was created, PAC was truly created to be a resource for district attorneys. PAC's influence has expanded in a lot of different ways, from conflict attorneys that they recently took over, training, HR, and you got the council, you do. But I believe that who holds us accountable is the voters, and also here, right now, it's the oversight bill, and that may, as it continues to roll out, need to be tweaked.
Right.
One of the things that I think should be included in that is assistant district attorneys. Not just district attorneys, but assistant district attorneys.
Sure. Any prosecutor, really.
Right. And there's a whole nother subsection, as you know, as it pertains to charging, that whether or not to charge a case. And it outlines the ways in which you might get in hot water for charging a case. If there's a conflict of interest or a financial benefit at hand, so forth. So I think from a statutory standpoint, we're in a better position than we've ever been as a state, as a community, to ensure that DAs are doing what they're supposed to do and not misbehaving.
Do you count yourself?
If I may jump in, Mr. Chairman, and piggyback on what Wright just said, because I think that this is important. I do have a policy and procedures, manual that my employees have to sign when they come and work for me. And it is tailored to my circuit, and it's very detailed. I did that when I became a district attorney, and I think I want to push back a little bit in an extremely respectful way, Mr. Chairman, on the idea that there are those of us out there that aren't doing that. Most of us, Chairman, most of us out here are keeping our head down, doing our jobs, serving the public, trying the cases, moving cases, making sure a case doesn't sit for years and years before a victim finds justice. And I just wanted to fight a little bit for those of us out here who are doing that. And we might be quieter. You might not hear from us necessarily. And I think that's why it's important that we're standing in front of you today, because that just means we're working. And so I just wanted to put that out there. And the reality of the budgets that we're operating under and the constraints that we're operating under, I mean, my employees in Spalding County were frustrated because they had to share a box of paper clips. I mean, this is real life stuff that we're fighting for every day. I mean, we fight for every penny that we get to support our employees, yes, but also support the taxpayers and support the citizens of the circuits that we serve. And so I just wanted that to be part of my testimony today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
That's great. Okay, so.
And just to be sure, from a large metro county, I had a policy and procedure manual. It outlined not only procedures like county cars and guns, and so it was partially for liability purposes, but it had a code of conduct, and I would enforce it.
Did you feel bound by that? That's a county policy, not your DA's.
No, it's a DA policy.
Okay. Do any of you feel like the county in which you serve can impose any employee policies on you?
They do.
For the county employees, they can.
Right. Okay. And you have this blend of state employees and county employees.
Correct.
Why would you ever want to treat them differently? You're going to treat your state-paid assistant district attorneys differently, standards of conduct, et cetera, than your county.
I didn't. I mean,
Do you think the county can impose those duties on you? They're having this battle in Fulton County. The Madam DA in Fulton County says she ain't got to do what Fulton County tells her to do with whistleblowers, with treatment of employees, or anything, because she is a constitutional officer. She can set her own darn policies. Do other DAs feel like you're bound by county policies and procedures on employment?
No, I never felt like I was bound by I was bound by my word that I would agree to that my employees would submit to it. And there were times when something came out of the county that I thought was stupid, and I said, we're not going to do that. And I exercised. So, you know, in a way, based on the case law, the district attorney in Fulton County is correct that they can't. There's no mechanism in either state law or the case law that allows the county to impose its will on an elected constitutional officer.
Can they make you treat county-paid employees in accordance with the county's policies, including nepotism and?
No.
They cannot?
No.
Then maybe we need a state law to impose this on you people so y'all treat our employees fairly. We're paying for all of them, one way or the other. Citizens are,
Well,
either through county funds or state funds.
Can I?
If I may interject here.
This tension I'm trying to bring out, because there is.
Sure.
Constitutional officers want to run their show and not be told by county governments how to do it. State government's not telling you how to do it. Y'all are saying we're kings, we can do what we want to do, you just gotta trust us.
One thing that Murray, go ahead.
Right, can I jump in really quick? Yeah, and answer your question. And because I want to highlight something here, Mr. Chairman, that I think is very important for the commission to understand. I have one county employee, that's it. And that's because she retired from the state and she could not receive state benefits. So I went to Spalding County and begged them to hire her on as a county employee. That's my only county employee. The other ways that they're funded, and I think this is where maybe some confusion comes in, is the rest of mine are state paid, county reimbursed. They're either state paid or they're state paid, county reimbursed, meaning that PAC pays their salary and I reimburse PAC either with grant funding for my victim advocates or my investigators, or with county money that the county gives me to then reimburse PAC.
So does that make them a state employee or a county employee? If they're
state employee, sir.
So all of your people are state, even if they're paid by the county? State paid, county
Except for
reimbursed.
one.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that. I needed to clarify that. So that's how a lot of us operate out here. A lot of us don't have a lot of county employees. So I think this is a more isolated problem than you're going to see across the state, because most of my employees, like I said, are state employees. They receive state benefits, but the county has agreed to reimburse the state for them to have those benefits. It's easier on your smaller counties because they don't have to carry the actual employee. They just give the money over and then the state gets it from them. So I wanted to make that clarification, right? I don't know how many actual county employees you have, but I only have one. So that really wouldn't be, and that happened this year. So that wouldn't be a problem in my circuit.
The issue that, and I hear what you're saying. First, I want to tell you, I'm not a king. And my wife reminds me of that on a daily basis. All right. The problem that I have, and I'm fine, look, I'm fine with whatever, it doesn't bother me. The problem I have is I have 8 counties. And I'll use an example. There are certain holidays where Jones County and Wilkinson County take the holiday, but Greene and Putnam and Hancock County don't. And so if I get 8 counties with 8 different operating procedures or how employees are, most of my county employees have to sign certain county handbooks and that kind of thing. And I'll tell you, that's the complicating issue. If I had my magic wand, how would this all improve and be great? Is that for the DA's offices to be 100% funded by the state of Georgia. Practically speaking, that would be an astronomical price tag. But that would be a wonderful thing for me in my office, because right now what you're highlighting is why I started to have gray hair. Is I've got 8 county budgets, 8 county sets of county commissioners. I've got the state legislature. I've got PAC. I've got a lot of people, and when you get a lot of people in the room, it's very difficult at times because they may define things differently, and it's hard to comply with whatever that is. I'll tell you this. I did not fire her. I asked her to resign. My best trial attorney. I asked her to resign because I caught her in a lie to one of my judges. I will tell you that I personally have had to make a tough decision as it pertains to my employees. I had one test positive for THC, fired her on the spot. There are time and time again where we've got to make tough decisions. I'm certainly fine with oversight, but to have a clear set of directives is what I'm asking. I can only speak for me. What are those directives?
And that's kind of what I'm probing, and I'm playing a little devil's advocate here with y'all. Don't perceive me as being antagonistic. I'm very concerned that we don't have any universal, consistent codes of conduct for prosecutors. What are the ethical guidelines? What are the fair expectations of our citizens? And I'm seeing the reason is because, as far as I can tell, they're only bound by the disciplinary rules and ethical guidelines of the State Bar of Georgia that apply to all attorneys. I don't see where PAC has ever enacted any. And what I'm hearing is, even if you do, you can't enforce it. And I'm hearing you also say counties can't enact them on us because we're kings and queens. And I'm saying that joking. You are constitutional officers. You are elected by citizens. Your positions are created by the Constitution. And for good cause, you need to have independence. Senator Jones would agree with me as an ex-solicitor. You don't need us meddling in your business. But as far as ethical guidelines and expectations, what the public deserves so that they can have a feeling that they're going to get fair and impartial treatment in the criminal justice system, which to me is more important than the civil justice system where we're just trying to sue you for money. The criminal system, we're going to put you in jail and take your money as a fine. You ought to have an expectation that the people in there that are prosecuting you and the judges that are ruling over the cases are going to be bound by universally accepted and understood ethical guidelines, and that the guardrails, as we're talking about.
Senator, I had left before the passage of the oversight bill.
Right, it's brand new.
It's brand new, and I'm hopeful that it will develop into something as robust as the Judicial Qualifications Commission, the JQC, which does enforce ethical and conduct guidelines against judges and has been very successful with it. And I'm hopeful that this agent, now a lot of DAs don't support it, but if you remember back when the JQC started, there were a lot of judges who didn't support it because no constitutional officer willingly submits to a limitation or of the authority they're granted by the Constitution. Nobody wants to do that, so yeah, I'm not arguing against guardrails.
But you're helping flesh out what's an underlying tension, particularly in Fulton County. Can
Right.
Fulton County impose ethical guidelines on prosecutors?
It would be my opinion, based on the case law, that no, they
Right.
can't. When you talk
And
about.
I also want to highlight, I want to highlight, Danny, real quick too, that I just want to reiterate that that's a single county. So for those of us, if you said the county can start implementing their particular restrictions on the district attorney, you got to think I'm over here with Fayette County, who has a very different set of needs than my Pike County or my Upson County people. And I want to reiterate and back right up on something, because I think this is important. When it's budget time, for those of us with multiple counties, I'm going to the Fayette County County Manager, the Spalding County County Manager, Pike County, and Upson County, and I'm meeting with all of them, and then presenting to the commissioners that want me to present to them. So I'm getting checked at the state level, I'm getting checked at the county level, I'm getting checked, all over the place. So and I know Wright's the same way. So I just want to kind of draw back the lens a little bit from just a single county. Sorry, Danny, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I have been thinking about that as well. So one of the other issues that's come up is procurement guidelines. County personnel guidelines, we just discussed, is about as deep as we can get. We can't solve that problem today, but we can highlight that is a problem. The other is county procurement guidelines. There was an audit done in Fulton County recently, which was highly critical of the district attorney's office. And part of the reason is that the district attorney's office essentially wrote them a letter saying, we've got prosecutorial discretion that allows us to hire any expert witnesses or special prosecutors that we want to. And you can't tell us what to do. And there's some worry in Fulton County that DA's office has extended that to buying other goods and services, that they don't have to have fair bidding procedures in place or whatever, that they can do what they want because they're not bound by those procurement processes, even though they're funding all of that peripheral spend, everything other than salaries. And love any feedback y'all have on that, is what input should or can a county have on you in the procurement policies?
Well, as the former representative of a large county, I would say that I was pretty typical of people of my generation, is that we voluntarily submitted to follow P-card usage guidelines that were promulgated by the county, purchasing rules, and in fact, they have a purchasing department that you just say, I need a computer, and you call them up, and then they do all the bidding and searching for other items. Now, if you ask me under current law, could I have been forced to do that? My answer would be probably not.
Okay. Well, that's what Dexter Bond, who's kind of number 2 guy in Fani Willis's office, said. He wrote to the auditors in Fulton County and said, the ability to contract these services are left to our own discretion, and no one has the authority to challenge this discretion. Basically, go take a flying leap, Fulton County, I'm gonna do what I want with my procurement. And you think legally, she's right, you could do that, maybe not politically wise, but
Right. I mean, I think legally that under current law, that is a somewhat inartfully put, but correct position. But I think he's right.
okay. So my next one is on special prosecutors, and then I'm going to let Senator Jones ask some questions before we leave this topic. That suits you, Harold? On the special prosecutors, I believe this is under 15, 18, 20, right? You got the code there apparently in front of you too, when hiring the district attorneys and deputy district attorneys and other attorneys, investigators or whatever. as covered by that code section. Subsection B says, personnel employed by the district attorney pursuant to this code section shall serve at the pleasure of the district attorney. So now we're back to prosecutorial discretion. It makes a whole lot of sense if you're going to hire an expert witness or a prosecutor or whatever. And shall be compensated by the county or counties comprising the judicial circuit. The manner and the amount of compensation to be paid is to be fixed either by a local act or by the district attorney with the approval of the county or counties comprising the judicial circuit. That is being interpreted by Fulton County, that they had the power to approve the $700,000 that Mr. Wade has made, but they weren't allowed to. It's been interpreted by the DA in Fulton County that I'll pay them whatever I want to pay them and hire who I want to pay. Do you guys have views on how that, what checks and balances does a county have in your use of a special prosecutor? Let's talk a little bit about funding for them. How is that ordinarily done? Danny, you've told me, I know PAC has a system in place to provide prosecutors. If you could walk me through how that works, and then I want views of all of you on, is there any check and balance on what a DA does as far as hiring special prosecutors and paying them? And we've got a special prosecutor here in Fulton County that's made 3 times what the DA makes. Wow, you know, and this is, I'll start with you because you've got the seniority.
I have to plead ignorance on the special prosecutor because I never used one all the time.
In your 40 years, you never ever used a special prosecutor?
My predecessors, I never saw one in the office, and I never used one. So,
how about you other guys? Have y'all, other DAs, ever used a special prosecutor or know of that being done?
Yes.
In counties near you?
So, in talking to some of my fellow DAs, it appears to me that at least in smaller offices, there are 2 ways in which you would see a special prosecutor come in. And one of them is, I say free loosely, it's already paid for by the taxpayer dollars. PAC has a branch within itself of a team of attorneys. Sheila Ross is a special, she's an attorney that goes around the state. She's handling the murder case in Athens of the UGA student, but her specialty is death penalty work. We did not call her in to help us officially with our 2 death penalty cases that we tried over the last 3 years, but we certainly used her as a resource. PAC has an elder abuse prosecutor, they have an animal cruelty prosecutor, they have a RICO specialist. Prosecutors, DAs can contact PAC and at no cost to them request PAC's assistance for additional attorneys within PAC's organization. That's one way.
Are those additional attorneys employed by PAC or are they just at other district attorney's office and develop expertise?
No, they are within PAC and within PAC's budget, which is separate and apart
So
from
they've
the
got another little pack of attorneys there that are like glorified assistant DAs with specialties.
You still have to swear them in.
a special prosecutor.
I've used it one time officially, and that was on a big RICO case out of Jones County. We brought in a PAC attorney, swore him in, his name was John Reagan. Another way that you will see DAs use special prosecutors is somebody, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the name, but Michael Lambros, and what he specializes, he's not with PAC, but what Lambros does and markets himself as is having a specialty with civil forfeiture proceedings. I've never used him, but he has gone around the state and developed a reputation of having an expertise in that. Some of those cases are very complex, and those district attorneys can either hire him per hour, and I think, again, I've never used him, a percentage of whatever the settlement is on the civil forfeiture. I've never hired somebody, a third party. I can only talk from my experience. If I did that, one, I'd have to have the money, which I don't, to do that. But if I did, it would be somebody that had a special skill set that I myself did not have or did not have within my office. It would be somebody that was very, very experienced at whatever the type case we were prosecuting.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could go right ahead. If you're talking about special prosecutors as conflict counsel, which is, you declare a conflict.
That's a whole different type than what we've talked about so far.
Right, independently hired. I want to correct my testimony. I've used conflict counsel.
Tell us what would create a conflict. Give us an example. Of how
For instance, we discovered in an initial investigation that a judge was involved in a criminal activity in the later years of my term. I immediately called GBI to do the investigation, and then prosecuting attorney's counsel, I declared a conflict, which basically
you said you had a conflict.
I had a conflict
because
because
it was that judge or whatever.
Correct. And then they sent employees of prosecuting attorney's counsel, and I swore them in as special assistant DAs. And I've done that
That's done
maybe 5 times over the 27 years.
Okay, got it. That's a different type of special prosecutor. That's
Right.
a prosecutor provided by PAC if the local DA's office has a conflict.
Correct. But I've never hired an expert prosecutor that is there to be like an assistant DA that has a skill set that, like John Floyd is a RICO specialist.
So back to the special prosecutors. PAC also has people that they can provide or recommend if you need special expertise or don't have enough manpower to do that in your office.
And they'll do it through the same, you just request the special prosecutor, and that's something that has developed since I was the chairman, but we were in the process of developing expertise through hiring.
And when you say it's free, you're just saying it's not coming out of your budget. You don't have to go beg counties for money. That is state funded.
Correct.
Through an appropriation to PAC.
That is correct.
Marie, have you ever used a special prosecutor?
Okay, no, I won't belabor the point, Mr. Chairman. No, I've never used one other than through PAC. Right now, PAC is handling a case along with the Attorney General's office in conjunction with my office. But again, that's no cost, any additional cost to my county. So no, I've never brought in somebody from the outside. It's always been from PAC. If I had a conflict, for example, a family member was the victim of theft, then another DA's office came in and helped out with that case. But those are the only circumstances where I've used anything like that.
And then sometimes in the conflict cases, Pete will ask another DA or say me as a retired DA to go on the conflict case.
And on those type of cases, the local DA doesn't have to pay you. You're paid by PAC.
I'm paid by PAC.
All right, so.
The princely sum of $58 an hour.
All right, that's, you should work in Fulton County. Couldn't resist. All right, what time we got? 12:50. Senator Jones, would you like to ask some questions now?
Yeah,
Take a break. I'm gonna turn the mic over to Senator Harold Jones, who has the privilege as a minority member to ask questions as well, and I'm gonna let him flesh out. If we can limit it to the subject matters that we've covered so far, then we'll take us a lunch break and come back, and I really do want to talk about special grand juries before we let you guys go. And there may be other topics, and Senator Jones, you can confer with me too. We'll, while we have this brain power here before us, let's utilize them, all right?
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
I just only had a couple, Mr. Chair. One of them was, other than total state funding, has there been any conversation about changing the formula that we use on funding you guys from a state perspective? Because if you're basing it on the number of judges, you get the ADA on number of judges, which is based on their workload assessment, which is to me, very flawed about how that process works, which then is going to impact the number of people that you have. Have you guys had any internal conversation about changing that kind of formula, how we would do that to get you more people?
I can't speak for everybody. There's 50 DAs and PAC. I would welcome that. I know that there's been sidebar conversations. There's been some conversations in DA meetings. I think that the structure, I'm only speaking for me, the structure that you speak of is outdated and certainly needs to be revisited.
During the time that I was working, was the chairman of PAC and was working with PAC, there were several proposals that were floated by some of the committees or some of the leading members of the legislature, and there was not a lot of interest. So what we've traditionally done is work within the framework of the scheduling or the numbers, formula, so to speak, and try and raise DA salaries or raise assistant DA salaries and obtain more people under the formula.
I want to add to that right now, starting salary on the state scale for assistant district attorneys is at $58,000. And so I just heard one of my fellow DAs in the back of my head want to point that out, because if y'all were to give us more positions, we would gladly take them and be thankful for that. But I think we also have to understand, again, going back to Irwinton, Georgia, who wants to come to Irwinton, Georgia for $58,000 when they got $100,000 in student debt? So part of that in trying to figure out how to work this is going to be the competitive pay piece. And yes, I've got attorneys right now that are sitting there with 200 cases apiece. And it's just, when you have that kind of caseload, it's very difficult to provide the services that we want to provide, that y'all want us to provide, and the time. I walked in yesterday and watched one of my advocates spend over an hour on a misdemeanor case with a victim. And she's got hundreds of cases herself. So there's just a lot there to unpack.
Absolutely. Anyone else? My second question was, it seemed like District Attorney Porter, when you were talking about the +2, you mentioned about not actually wanting a position because the way it was going to be structured or kind of restricted, it seemed like. The juvenile position. Would you like to see any kind of loosening on those restrictions, whether it's a drug court prosecutor, juvenile prosecutor, or maybe not, or just give you a +2 and let you guys determine how you want to use that +2 from that standpoint? So you wouldn't have to say, I don't want the position because the restrictions are just going to stop me from doing what I want to do.
I think in certain circumstances, it would probably be better just to allocate a position, an assistant district attorney position, so that the district attorney, but you always have to guarantee that the drug court is staffed and that that was the interest of the legislature. The drug court is staffed, the juvenile court is staffed as adequately as the state provides, and so I think it's hard not to, because with the juvenile court, for instance, some counties had to get a juvenile court started in order to qualify for the position. So they had to create a juvenile court because it wasn't in the county. Some circuits had. So I'm not sure that loosening any restrictions would accomplish what DAs need to do on the ground.
Okay. And then my last one was, all of you had mentioned about the funds being cut for the victim services from the federal government. What was the rationale for that? Or did you even get a rationale?
As I understand it, and I want to first say, don't quote me specifically on this, but the money we were receiving from the federal government came from fines and fees from U.S. Attorney's offices prosecuting certain cases. And I believe it was tied primarily to white collar cases. And because those fines and fees have shrunk, the money that's available has shrunk. That would, again, to get really into the weeds and get the best answer to you, would need to be a question directed at Pete Scandalakis.
Because I believe the forfeitures were already included in that.
Well, we can't use forfeiture money for salaries.
But if the feds cycle it through the grant process,
right,
that may negate that.
Correct.
But that also brings up, there is a fourth source for some DAs, and that's forfeiture money. And that, there are restrictions, there are reporting restrictions, there are spending restrictions that codified in state law. And some DAs get a tremendous amount of forfeiture money and some don't, and it varies.
But that cannot go towards salaries.
You can't use it for salary.
But there again, there have been times where that forfeiture money, unfortunately, has not been spent correctly, in my humble opinion. It's gotta be for training, supplies, vehicles, but now, a vehicle doesn't mean a Range Rover. A vehicle means something practical. That's my opinion.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Senator Jones. We're going to take a lunch break, and we have lunch provided down in the Senate Mezz, which is down the stairs right at the back entrance. If you would please give preference to committee members, witnesses, and my favorite court reporter first, but others, press, and those in attendance are welcome to partake. So those of you that are here, we're gonna break now. I think we'll be back here. Let's just call it, what time we got now? 12:20 now. Let's try to circle back in here 1 o'clock or very shortly after. I know you've had a long day, right? Don't want it to keep you here too long, and I appreciate the time of everybody. We'll reconvene very close to 1, and my intention is we should wrap up the presentations by the district attorneys within 30 minutes max after that. And then we have Representative Mesha Mainor is also going to be testifying with us this afternoon. Thank you. We'll be in recess until 1 o'clock.
I'm gonna make myself a note. Yeah, next month. Yeah. Well, I was gonna go to this. Don't you?
Well, I put that in there for all and I'll use that. What did I put in our?
Just wanted to see if you needed me personally or if you thought one of the other senior attorneys in the office. So. Okay, well, I'm gonna be out in your district spending some money at least.
You doing?
They got in trouble because they were
there's church outside here, or just start like writing and start.
And that's what, yeah, and then so they got in trouble. That's what the courts.
Workings also, things are just so different, just like it's one thing like for a giant county. That's and like a big trend that you always see in the legislature, criminal payers in Georgia. It is Atlanta versus everything else. Like the leaders are just from rural areas, from exurbs or suburbs.
Things have changed since then.
So you're seeing that tension take place. All these big like PR departments and stuff. It's a way for them to
You packing up?
No, I thought we were, is there a possibility of a media avail now?
Seem to refer to that.
Possible.
That's what I was possibly moving for.
Got it.
I'm just gonna no, I'm coming back for sure.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
These things are old.
Yeah.
Charlie, would you grab my big binder of stuff there?
I heard, no, I'm afraid not. Not until after the testimony is completed. But it, maybe it'd be 2:30.
And the lighting on the inside, oh my goodness, y'all are what?
I do appreciate you trying to, kind of do like a press pool kind of footage.